Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and for the very first review of 2021, I am bringing to you Duke Nukem 3D World Tour Edition. We're going to talk here a bit about 3D, and I'm going to talk about some of the changes that were made to Duke Nukem World Tour, or for Duke Nukem World Tour. But man, this is really winding back the clock for me. I remember when this was a brand new game back in 1996, so let's dive on in here. The developer is 3D Realms. The publisher is FormGen. Engine is Build Engine, and it was released for MS-DOS, and it was released in January of 1996. Now this game would end up being ported over to other systems. It would actually have a port over to PlayStation, and it would that would be Duke Nukem Total Meltdown, and then you would have Duke Nukem 64 for the N64 way back in the day. It would also be, actually they would even have a version of this on Game Boy Advanced, although it looked really horrible. But hey, they got it to work on a Game Boy Advance, so I guess you can give them props for that. It is one of the earlier FPS games and probably one of the more successful, if not even the most successful FPS game of its era. Now, this would not be the FPS game to start all. In my opinion, the FPS game that would start all would be Wolfenstein 3D. And then it would really get things up and going, and the first-person shooter genre of the time would grow even further with Doom. Everybody knows Doom now, especially because, you know, they've kind of rebooted the whole Doom series with Doom. What was that, in 2014, 2016? And then you'd get Doom Eternal later. But this was revolutionary at the time. This had a destructible environment, which Doom really didn't have a destructible environment. The environment was a little bit more interactive per se. The character actually talked, which was a brand new thing at the time, a character actually talking while you're playing a first-person shooter. There was a lot of stuff they were able to do with the build engine that at the time you just could not do with the Doom engine. And then later this would evolve even further into the Quake engine. Or actually, I think the Quake engine was more another evolution of the Doom engine. Build engine was an evolution of the Doom engine as well. Now, it does have a sort of 3D-ish environment, but the characters are actually 2D itself. So the events, it would be set after Duke Nukem 2. Duke Nukem and Duke Nukem 2 were actually they were side-scrolling platform shooter games. A lot like, think of Super Mario Brothers with guns, or think of the original Contra that used to be on the that was on the Nintendo. I guess that might be dating me. I really don't know of any more modern side-scroller shooter games that actually comes to mind. Other side-scroller games were like the classic Castlevania games. They were side-scroller platformers as well, even though they were not shooter games. And realistically, this game would be like the revolutionary game of the time. It had a ton of popularity, and it might have actually, I'm not really 100% sure, it might have even surpassed Doom for popularity. It's kind of hard to say because Doom is also really popular in itself, really good game. But actually, when it comes to the two games, I actually always liked this one better. I like the environment better. I like the one-liners that Duke drops. And besides the fact that it's got hookers and blackjack, you can't go wrong right there. It's also a high-intensity, high-action game, just like Doom is, so there's a lot of comparisons here to Doom. The environment, though, like I said, I like the environment a lot better. There's areas where it's dark and it's dank and you're, you know, trudging through some sewer shit to find the enemy. And then there's areas that are nice, big, well lit. So it really changes things up. It's interesting in the different environments that they were able to work into the game. There's your corridors, there's your big arena type rooms, everything, and it's just like a maze type game, just like Doom, Quake, other games of the era at the time. But to me, when it came to first person shooters, this was kind of like the pinnacle of the first person shooters. There wasn't, in my opinion, a whole heck of a lot of improvement after this game was released. Some people may argue with me. I guess it's probably one of those. I guess now I'm considered a boomer here because I grew up with this type of shooter, and now they call it boomer shooters, and I remember when it was just called a FPS game. But there is also some changes here with Duke Nukem World Tour. I'm going to dive into those now. So there's actually changes in the publisher and the developer. The developer is Nerve Software. The publisher is Gearbox. The platforms it was released on is PlayStation, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. And that was in October of 2016. 20 years after the game had been released, and then it would also end up being released on Nintendo Switch in June of 2020. So actually this is a very recent Nintendo Switch port, and I don't know, I would not imagine it actually really looks this good on Nintendo Switch, but I don't know. This is the PC version, because PC Master Race, if you're going to play Duke Nukem, play it on a PC, yada yada yada. So what would World Tour change? World Tour adds some new levels by the original Duke 3D level designers. It would add some new music by Lee Jackson. It would add more and new voice lines by John St. John. Yes, that is the Duke himself. It would have new enemies, lighting effects, and it would even add a new weapon with the incinerator. And the incinerator is actually not bad. I like it. I like it better than the freeze thrower. It's pretty devastating, although it can damage you as well. So, especially when you light enemies on fire and they decide to run up to you. So anyway, so the game is $20 on Steam. If you're looking for these old school boomer shooters, or you want to go back down nostalgia memory lane like I did when I bought it, I would say it's definitely worth the $20. Although it's nothing out of the ordinary to maybe like during the Steam summer sale, pick this game up for $10. But it's definitely worth it if you're looking for this type of game. If you want to go down the old memory lane and remember how great first-person shooters were. And if you're just looking for a high-action game that you could just start up, blast away some enemies, and save your game and walk away, this is another good game for that, especially if you have the reflexes. My reflexes aren't as good as they used to be, but I'm still good enough to keep up with the bad guys in this game, so that's good enough for me. But anyway, folks, yeah, it's definitely worth it. I love Duke Nukem 3D, and it's actually great that Duke Nukem 3D adds some new levels to play with. It adds a whole new section, giving that whole world tour feel. There's stages set in Russia, stages set in England, and different parts of the U.S., and so on and so forth, even Egypt, folks. But anyway, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. It is a short review, but, I mean, probably by this point, I'm sure everybody realizes how great Duke Nukem 3D was. And honestly, it still feels like a really good shooter game. Still really fun shooter game to play. But anyway, folks, hopefully you all enjoyed it, the video, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you again for the next one.